Welcome back to the program, Aces fans. So as you know, this is part of the install series video of the Jackpot on our S10 here, 5.3 4th gen 4L60 drive-by-wire, so on and so forth. We drove it back to the warehouse. We still got some trim to put on. It's ugly, but I mean, don't mind that. It's part of a build. People that do hot rodding know that your project car is never actually done. But we're going to try to do this in the most complete fashion as we can. We brought it back to the warehouse because we realized that underneath this vehicle, even on a lift, you cannot see what we're trying to explain. So we got it here at the warehouse. I'm going to go through a bunch of the different type of headers that I have and a couple of the engine stands explaining the best placement for the O2 sensor in these systems. It's just there's some allowances you can have, but it kind of needs to be in a certain area, and I'll explain why later in this video. So now that we've gotten rid of the Blazer, it's actually over there in the parking lot, not a big deal, but I brought out both my run stands, a couple of swap headers for a Hemi, for an LS. We got the classic small block. We got our LS run stand here. I want to talk about O2 sensor placement, which seems to plague a lot of people that are having strange fueling issues, but because they got their O2 sensor in a weird spot. So on the Blazer, it is in the perfect spot, but it's impossible to film because you just can't get in there. It's amazing, but it's tidy. It took a little extra fabrication work to make it fit. So, but we got some LS swap headers. Now, you know when you buy these things off the internet or at a speed shop that it comes with an O2 sensor bung down here. This is not a great spot to put it because these headers, or this is actually an extractor as it goes, these are going to have pulses of gases from each cylinder. With that O2 sensor right there, it's really going to be reading this back cylinder, which, you know, in a lot of cases, depending on RPM, engine load, and a bunch of fun stuff like that, this cylinder tends to be a little bit leaner than the rest. So if it sees that lean condition and all the turbulence, it'll read a false lean a lot of times and then just keep adding fuel until it's just, well, richer than it needs to be. So if you have a LS swap header like this, a few things to think about. Is it got the EGR port on it, or an air pump port? So this one right here, we went ahead and plug welded it up to seal it up so it doesn't introduce any kind of extra atmosphere in here or anything weird. So it's nice and sealed up. We did smoke test this one. It is a pretty premium header as it goes. It gets a little bit of abuse, honestly. We normally have a plug that we put in here, and this is just, we just put a bit of pipe on there a while back. Just, I don't even remember what project was doing for that, but I think was doing it to set up for an O2 sensor video. This, it's not even straight either, but it's welded on there really nice. So the O2 sensor will need to go back here. If you could imagine all these different pulses of exhaust gases emerging, and when are they going to be nice and smooth and flow in the same direction without any kind of extra pulsations in there, confusing what the sensor reading is. So you want to have it in a good spot. And I'll show you that on the small block here in a second, but this is fine. You just can't quite put it here. It'll mess with it. And I'll show you on the Hemi header as well. So let me go put this thing down. On our Hemi header, this is, as you guys know, we got a Challenger. But I'll be putting these on our Hemi engine when we get it back. We're going to build up a nice run stand. So, you know, if you got something that needs to be sent in and tested, it'll get tested on a motor. Anyways, on this, same thing. The manufacturer put this little plug in here because a lot of people put their O2 sensor right here. So when you put that in there, the same thing. It's just going to, all the pulses of the engine is going to mess with the O2 sensor reading. So really, leave the plug in there for this application. I bet that's loud on the microphone. And then when you put your rest of your exhaust system on, it's going to come out. And you want to be about right here, about 6 to 8 inches from where the collector is, preferably like the flange. But nice and sealed up here. No leaks here. O2 sensor's not there. No leaks up here on the flange. Nice and smooth. And you'll get a good, consistent O2 sensor reading that's really telling you what your engine's doing and how it needs to learn or how you need to tune it. So this is a good example of that. Now, let's get over here to the engine run stands. I've got one combination that has proven to work okay because of how it's made, and another one that's just right. So I'll set this down for us. So here on our LS, this is our LS engine. It's a 4th gen 58X x4. Nearly the same engine that's actually in the Blazer, which you can probably see in the shot in the back. Epic, right? So these are long tube headers. Nothing too crazy. But you notice that we did use this bung on these particular headers because we wanted to see what happens when you did this, but you put a bit of a muffler right here to help even out the pulses of the engine itself. So we got where it all collects, and we got 2 inches past it, and then we got a pipe. And because of the restriction in this, it's going to help stabilize the air, and it does work. So if you're really restricted on space and you have this kind of setup going on, depending on what vehicle you're building, this is marginally acceptable. It does work. We've had good success out of it, but for long-term drivability on the road, constant velocity and all that whatnot of the gas stream, you may run into a little bit of a headache, but I wouldn't really expect much. So this is marginally okay, and that's why we did it, just to see how good it would really be. So let's get over to the classic engine. You can see over here on this classic engine, this thing right here. So we got classic small block 350, long tube headers, straight off the internet, nothing crazy. Classic 3-bolt flange. This is actually sealed up very well. It fits horrible, but it does seal up. These things right here, there is no O2 sensor bungs on this. We added some extra pipe and we put this about 10 degrees off horizontal pointing down because the end of this element is actually open. So it needs to drain back any gases or any condensation it gets in there. So because if you point that up, it's just going to pull up in there and mess with your element, giving you a false condition and eventually ruin the sensor. So when it comes to placement, we got 18 inches or so of pipe way back here, plus a muffler and everything, doing good. We got this off horizontal, about 8 inches from the flange itself. This is sealed up. These are sealed up, nice and tight, nothing crazy going on. So this is a perfect condition. The Blazer that we've been working on in this video series kind of has a similar setup, except this O2 sensor is flipped to the inside because it has to clear the body and the rails back there. So it's in the same condition, but pointing here. Just clears the transmission, just clears the body, nothing crazy. There's no lines in here. And this attaches really nicely with the rest of the stuff that comes up through there. So this is what we got going on the Blazer. It's just over here. It's a real nice, tidy system. This works really good. On the other side of this, I've made a bunch of pinholes and stuff to, for training purposes. So hopefully that helps you demystify some of the O2 sensor setup. With the Jackpot and some of the multi-port systems as well, if you're running like a dual setup, you can run them in both pipes. All of our multi-port stuff runs a dual O2 sensor. So TBI stuff doesn't run a dual O2 sensor, only has one, but all of our systems you can use with just one, like I do in the Blazer, because there's no clearance on the other side to have another sensor in a respectable spot. So I have it plugged in on the passenger bank, wideband O2 sensor number 1. It's clicked in there. I selected it for number 1 in the software. It's reading off of that. So it's doing the adjustment for the entire engine based off of one O2 sensor. If you have 2 in there, it'll be left bank, right bank, totally separate, and then it averages out for any kind of corrections in the learning tables of how it applies it to the fuel table. And that'll be more in the software side of this video series. So yeah, hopefully you guys are tracking along. If you got any other questions or you want a different kind of explanation on this, just put it in the comments. We don't mind making this stuff at all. We finally got the chance to, and we're just moving forward with it, and we're doing it to help you. So you, the people, as it is. So let's get on with this and carry on to the next section.